Anxiety. The experience of excessive worrying is something that is common in life, something we all must face at one time or another. It is the cost of living, in a sense, as we are asked to make decisions and choices in order to achieve this particular outcome in various parts of our lives, whether that's with our health, our work, our relationships with others, our relationships with our significant others, or even just where we want to be mentally. And for that, we have to also come with an idea of how best to get there, what steps to take, what things need to fall in place in order for us to give a proper chance of achieving our dreams or hopes or this ideal outcome, or even just once we've achieved it, how best we can maintain it. What steps do we need to take? What things do we need to do? What kind of support do we need there? What values, circumstances, etc. help with this goal? All this is fine and dandy in our minds, but when it comes to executing it, we run into a number of different challenges because there is an outside world with numerous variables and circumstances that challenge it. And then we are met with challenges within anxiety is the belief that 1, everything is possible, and 2, nothing is possible. How this is explained is that 1, there are too many options of how we could achieve our ideal future, our ideal goal, our ideal way of living. And sometimes all those options are too overwhelming because there are too many ways that we can get there. And will it get us at the speed that we want? Will it get us in the way that we would like to achieve it? Will it cause us to go a different route? And that is frustrating in a sense, and that provokes and causes anxiety. And the other half, which would be nothing is possible, is despite the idea that we want this end picture, this end result, and no matter what we may do, there is a chance, just a chance, that we might fail and that this goal may not reach, or that we may not come off as handsome or as confident or as intelligent as we would like in some certain interactions. And that also creates anxiety. Coming up with this idea for this episode, I felt that it would be a great way to talk about anxiety and portray it, illustrate it, build awareness around it by speaking it from a place of knowledge, a place of experience. And so I present to you Therapist Anxiety, where we talk about our worries, talk about our challenges with anxiety and how we face them, and eventually reach acceptance in the fact that we do not have control over everything and we do the best that we can. Joining me is Vidur Malik and Cecilia Sanchez-Cruz. In this episode, we do discuss client stories and experiences. We have changed up information within the story in order to keep them unknown, further protecting HIPAA, so don't sue us. With that said, thank you for tuning in to Therapy House, the podcast. This is your host, Jeremiah Knight, licensed marriage family therapist. Let's start the show. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? This is Jeremiah Knight, producer here at Therapy House. As you know, new voices, new perspectives, new stories, and so today I'm riding solo. No other group members, just me running this thing with 2 guests. One of my closest buds, member of the delegation, my boy Vidur,
Hello.
and one of my favorite bosses, Ceci in the mix here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes. So Vidur, back from our Santa Clara days, as I said, member of the delegation, one of the brains of the operation. Many different hats Vidur wears. Vidur, why don't you tell the people about the many hats that you have been a part of, boardrooms, writing rooms, where you been at?
Yeah. So right now I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been licensed for about 2 years. Graduated from Santa Clara right when you did, about six and a half years ago now. But prior to that, in a past life, I was actually a sports journalist. So I thought that was my calling. And after working in the field for a few years, I realized it was not my calling. Still love sports, but more just as a fan and not as a professional writer. But definitely had a lot of fun stories, a lot of fun experiences. Can transfer a lot of my writing abilities over to this job with all the writing that we have to do. But as of now, yeah, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, worked in a bunch of different settings, schools, inpatient, outpatient. But now I just started at a private practice, loving it over there. So it's been a winding road, but very cool road as well.
Yeah, yeah. How did you find this profession, especially after journalism? Because I know you were at UCLA and you were doing big things and you pivoted.
Yeah, my main goal in life, like as a child, was to write for Sports Illustrated, and somehow, some way, it ended up happening. And I was in New York, and I was living the life of a journalist, and I just realized that it's a really important profession, but it's one that I didn't think I was cut out for. You have to be a little shameless. You have to be unafraid to upset people. You have to be unafraid to get in people's faces and demand answers when they don't want to give you answers. And I just realized that that was not my comfort zone. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that for a long time. And I had always known that I had enjoyed mentoring and just doing things where I was supporting people kind of figure out what they wanted to do for themselves, whether that was like writing tutoring or doing peer mentoring in high school. So I was like, this is just way more natural for me. I need to do something non-adversarial. So I did some research. I also wanted to come back home to California, looked at Santa Clara University, saw that they had a counseling psychology program. I was like, that feels like what I want to do. And it allowed me to move back home to the Bay Area. So made the switch, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah, yeah. Which was pretty interesting. I think for me, I think I was already in Monterey. I was finishing up my last year, and it's just more so I always fell in love with Santa Clara and loved the campus. It really suckered me in with having palm trees
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of San Jose or Santa Clara. I think it's all one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just on the fluke, I applied. I think I was working in security at the time, so I was pretty busy with that. And I think the acceptance came at the perfect time because I think I had already applied to a couple of places that were taking bachelor's in psychology. I think I actually interviewed at Bill Wilson for a therapist one position. There were hella therapists there, and I was way underqualified, so feeling pretty shitty. But then I got the acceptance to Santa Clara, and then I was like, okay, you know what? It's time to leave this job. I know I don't need to make too much money. I'm going to take out loans. It's time for me to just, get more experience working with kids. So then I applied to the Y, got a job as a head teacher because I had, ECE credits, which I didn't think. I thought I was going to be, an assistant teacher and get to be, slide by. And so all that to say, that's how I met Ceci, who became my boss and, showed me the ropes, made sure I had curriculum and plans and things like that. And little did I know, she was on her own journey to be a therapist as well. Yes. Why don't you tell us about, your journey and how you got there? Because you didn't go to Santa Clara. You went somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we met at the YMCA and, we both had similar interests in pursuing this career. I went to Notre Dame after receiving my bachelor's from San Jose State. I was actually in a different track. I was wanting to be an art teacher.
Oh.
And at some point, someone in my life mentioned art therapy. And I was like, what is that? Is that a thing? And I just did some research, and I took child development and psychology classes because of the job that we had at the YMCA.
Right.
And I really liked the psychology classes. And I just started to shift gears a little bit. And I found a program at Notre Dame, which was an MFT track, but it also had the art therapy component built in there.
Mm.
So now I'm licensed marriage family therapist, and then I'm also a registered art therapist.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So at least then with art therapy, how have you kind of been able to kind of really exercise that, or what's that like?
I think that it was a lot easier in my practicum because we were still all very connected and, within the art therapy cohort and group. I think that once I went outside of that, it was a little bit harder to incorporate the art therapy because not a lot of people are in it. There's really not a lot of knowledge of it. We have to have our own kind of supervision, which a lot of agencies and programs don't provide that. So it got a little bit tricky, but I figured it out. I was actually really lucky that my agency supported a couple of us who were on that track to be registered art therapists, and they actually contracted in someone and provided us with the supervision for our art therapy. So I was really thankful for the organization that I currently work with. I've been there for almost 7 years, going on my 7th year. and they've been very supportive. So I've been very thankful for that.
If you've been there for 7 years, they're doing something right. So shout out to them.
Yes.
So today we're discussing the topic of therapist anxiety. It's something I feel like, it's some anxiety in this profession, or just working together in this profession, isn't common. Like tennis, I mean, it's one of those things where you feel like you kind of work alone. And so you're not really privy to everybody else's tactics or techniques, or how they handle things, or how they create space in their rooms, or help people get to, where they want to be. And so anxiety is one of those things where it kind of just flourishes in the unknown and the uncertainty of life, especially within this profession. And yeah, there's many times where you can feel like you're on an island. For that reason, I believe therapist anxiety can be one of the most dangerous things to therapy. And so discussing that today and trying to find those answers, I'm curious, what's your guys' relationship with anxiety?
I think it's something for me that it's just always been really tricky to find the balance between the amount that's healthy and the amount that stops being healthy, and when to figure out when I've crossed over, whether that's in my personal life or as a clinician. I think in particular as a clinician, my relationship with anxiety has changed a lot. When I first started, it was a lot about crisis and making sure that I didn't drop the ball in a potential crisis for a client, or that my clients were okay when they left my office. Now it's less about that, because my confidence in like assessing crises has grown. Now it's more trying out new things, and being okay with trying something out for the first time, and not just kind of sticking to what I know, kind of just stepping out of my comfort zone. So I guess it's just, how do I know that the anxiety I'm feeling is the healthy kind that allows me to learn something new? And when do I realize like this is a little much and you need to dial it back a little bit?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think like any relationship, it grows, it changes, it develops, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And it's really up to each individual person, right? To really examine that and figure out what it means and what it's doing for you. Some anxiety can be very helpful. It's why we have it. It's why we feel it. It's why, it's built into us as human beings. And then some anxiety is not helpful. So there's always that ebb and flow of in and out.
Yeah. It's always been this kind of thing that just popped up. I remember just, everything being fine. I think there's little hints of it here and there throughout high school and, as a kid and scared of dark and stuff like that. Like, okay, that's fine. I feel like those were worries. But then as we became adults, like all of a sudden, oh no, those aren't worries anymore. You're an adult now. So now we call it anxiety. And so being able to grow up more and more, and I think with anxiety, having control, having more responsibility, it kind of takes up a lot more space. And so there's definitely times where I've had to definitely felt like it was opposition, this kind of antagonist kind of waiting in the Raptors, like Sting from WWE, ECW, no, WCW, coming down, swinging, and just like, oh yes, it's opposition. So every day I got to fight this anxiety. But working with it more, kind of talking to more clients about it, and being able to sit with it myself, is just realizing, oh no, this isn't an adversary. This is something that's you. This is part of you. And being able to kind of take a step back and really explore it and kind of be mindful towards it, be able to sit with it and recognize like, no, this is a part of you that you have to nurture, that you have to embrace. And if you don't, then in essence, it becomes your demise. And so being able to think about that, I mean, I wish I knew or had that relationship with it, of embracing it when I first started this profession. But this was definitely something that I felt like throughout the years, from beginning to where I am now, has been something that I've been like wrestling with and fighting, and it's taken many forms over the years. So I am curious about, when you guys first started out, knowing the profession, you guys kind of shared about your love for it, how you got into it. You guys went through all these classes, all these courses, specialties, developed close relationships with these clinicians that taught us through these universities. And then you're finally doing the work. First off the gate, I think all three of us started with kids. So at least then I think majority of us were taught to work with adults. So we were already off to not a hot step in stride with where we were, but at least for me, I know that for a fact. It was definitely a shift to kind of parallel things. But what were your guys' kind of initial worries that kind of popped up when you guys started your internships, or at least working in the field?
My only real source of anxiety was just, what do I do if a client's in crisis, if they tell me they want to hurt themselves or they want to hurt somebody else? But looking back, really, for everything else, I was kind of blissfully ignorant. Like, I was excited. I was like, let's get this started. Like, I'm ready. And some of the things that make me nervous now didn't make me nervous when I first started. It was kind of funny. I think I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I was like, oh, let's just do this. Like, I'm ready. Let's get started. And I think looking back, it was definitely like a blissful ignorance. Like, I didn't realize how much the field entailed and what it's just like to sit with somebody. I kind of thought like, oh, there's interventions for anything that comes up. So whatever they say, like, I'll have an intervention, I'll have something that I can say in response to it, and it'll just go great. Then you realize that there are things that there are no intervention for, and there's suffering that's just really, really deep. And you can't like say the perfect reflective statement or open-ended question to like calm it or soothe it. You just have to let it sit there. So I think I realized like what the work is about, and just like sitting with somebody in their pain or whatever they're feeling. And that kind of, the more I realized about what the work entails, the more my anxiety grew, because then I was like, oh, it's way more to it than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's just like immense world of like
Yeah.
gray, not black and white. Gray.
Yeah. And then, like you get supervision pre-licensure, and you check in with the supervisor once a week, and you have group supervision. So you have these natural opportunities to consult and get feedback, and then you get licensed, and then that's all gone. And you're like, you kind of have to work hard to consult with somebody, or to have like a regular space where you get feedback or you get other perspectives. So I think my anxiety is growing a little bit in that, like, the consultation part of it, it's still available, but it's not as automatic or as effortless as it was before.
Yeah. And so yeah, I'm curious, what things kind of help the blissful ignorance kind of maintain there, at least, or how long did it last?
Yeah. It lasted probably a few months. You mentioned the Bill Wilson Center. That's where I did my internship, and I credit that place a lot with just getting me experience in a lot of different types of work. So I think I was always, when I envisioned therapy, I envisioned the clients who would like show up every session on time, super engaged, right? I was kind of envisioning like the way that we'd all want it to be, but because of the things our clients go through, that's not always possible. Sometimes our clients, can't make it to a session, or they have to take 2 buses and walk to a session. And so it's just not possible to show up, or they can't afford therapy. So there were times when my clients wouldn't attend, and I'd be like, I never envisioned this happening. Like, I just always thought they'd show up and we'd meet for our 50 minutes, and then we would meet the next week. And then you realize life gets in the way, because for a lot of the people we support, it's just a struggle to make it through the day. So that's when I realized like, oh, this is like real life stuff I'm dealing with, and it's not always going to look the way we think it's going to look on paper. It's not always going to be a client who's ready to work, because they might not have a free minute in the day. And so you might get a last minute cancellation, or they might not tell you they're not coming. And you have to sit with that and be like, oh, I was all ready to go. Like, I was all hyped up. I drove here, but you just have to remind yourself, like, people are struggling, and they're just in survival mode oftentimes. And that's kind of where that blissful ignorance kind of dissipated a little bit.
Yeah. And with that, it feels like do you feel like in that piece, like there's overworking, at least in that sense, what would replace the blissful ignorance then? Was it more like an increased sense of like responsibility? You feel like it was something else?
I think it was an increased sense of like just awareness of like like you said, like the nuances of the job, like the outside of what to say or what modality to use, just what it's like to hear somebody tell you about how much they're suffering. And that's the kind of thing that if you're not in the room, you don't experience that power, and there's no substitute for being in the room. So I think the blissful ignorance was replaced by just an understanding of what my clients oftentimes had to go through just to get to therapy. All the kind of background that wasn't background for them, because it was real life. So just an understanding of how hard life is for a lot of the people we work with.
Yeah. Okay. Ceci?
I think I had a little bit of an opposite experience. I started off with a lot of anxieties coming into my first experience.
You're not the only one. So like,
and I feel like with time, those reduced.
yeah.
I think one of my biggest fears, anxieties was, what if I'm not helpful? Or what if I say something that makes things worse? I think that was one of the things that I was always very, very mindful about, or just being very careful about. I've always liked being a very helpful person. One of the reasons why a lot of us go into this field. And I started off school-based, which was pretty easy population because you just pull them out of school or class and, they're in your office, so they're very consistent. But yeah, in my mind, it was always like, just don't make it worse. Don't say something that makes it worse. What if you're not being helpful? What if they're not, getting anything out of it? I think those were the thoughts that would run through my mind pretty early on.
Yeah. Being a helper seemed like it was a big piece of your identity coming into the profession. Do you feel like that was something that influenced that worry of being, or at least the worry of not being helpful, not saying the right thing?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think that wanting to do well for others is definitely a root of those thoughts. Because if I, like I said, I like being helpful, and if I'm not being helpful, then essentially, like, I'm not doing my job well. And of course, I want to do my job well, and so that is. Yeah, those were the thoughts that are running wild every day.
Because, I mean, for you, at least then what established that, like, helper's identity for you?
What established that?
Yeah. Oh, you have memories growing up, or were you always the mediator amongst the kids, or?
I think that because I grew up in a family where both my parents worked a lot, so there wasn't a lot of parental supervision around. And so a lot of us had to grow up doing things for ourselves. And, I have younger brothers, and, my older siblings always helped me. So we were always in helping roles, not just within my own family, but extended family, right? Like cousins and aunts and uncles, and we all lived pretty close to each other. And that's just the way it was. When one family was out working, the other moms would come and help in, with the other kids. And so that was always modeled to me. That was always the way of life to help each other out.
So then the initial fear within that identity and this profession, what if you aren't helpful? What if you do more damage? What if you say the wrong thing? What kind of weight did that have, at least to your role as a helper?
Yeah, I think that it made me very hesitant at first. I was very careful of everything that I was saying. And I think that sessions weren't so natural to my authentic self, because I was in my head about those worries and those fears. And I think that, yeah, that played a role in my sessions, and it created a barrier.
Mm.
And I feel like part of being able to overcome that was utilizing my supervision, and talking about it, and being able to be vulnerable and talk about my anxieties and my fears around that. And I had a really great supervisor who definitely guided me and helped me understand that you can't, unless you're intentionally trying to make people, unless you're intentionally trying to cause harm, you can't cause more harm, essentially, which I think was a really big thing that stuck with me. And I think that that's one of the things that kind of helped me get over those thoughts that I was having.
Yeah. For the both of you, was it easy to be honest about or open about your anxieties in the beginning?
Yeah, I think it was easy for the crisis part. Like if I felt like there was a client who maybe needed some extra support or follow up, I had no problem like reaching out to a supervisor and being like, hey, like I know it's a little late, or I know we're not supposed to meet till tomorrow, but I'm a little nervous about this client. Like, can we check in about them? But I think for the non-crisis stuff, it was a little harder for me because I wanted to appear as if I had it all down. So I guess I just wanted to come off as like somebody who was confident, and knowing that I always have more to learn. But I wanted to, I don't know, like I wanted to come off as somebody who got it. And I'm realizing now, looking back, like that doesn't exist in our work. Like there's no such thing as a perfect response or like a textbook thing that you should do in any situation. So much of it is who you are as a person and your experience and your presence in the room, that there's no one protocol for how to do it right. And I kind of felt back then like, oh, I just need to figure out what that is, like to do it the right way. And that was probably part of my blissful ignorance too. That was even a thing. And now I'm realizing that so much of the healing that we try to support our clients with is them sitting with us, and not in a way that makes it about us, but just in a way that we show up, and we all show up different. And that doesn't mean that, some of us can help others and some of us can't. We just do it in different ways. We can all help. We can all support. So I think I've kind of let go of the idea that I need to appear like I got it all down and be okay with being told like, okay, like there's another way you could have done that. What did you can consider this, or what went into this, without taking that as like a sign that I made a quote unquote mistake.
Yeah.
It was definitely not easy for me to talk about the struggles that I was having. Again, because I wanted to do my job well, and it took time to understand the importance of being able to talk about the struggles, so that you can have that guidance to overcome that. And similar to our own clients, right? We want them to be vulnerable. We want them to talk about their struggles because that's the process of it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think mine's in the beginning were just no. I kept those things to myself. I think I was also kind of battling some other stuff of, well, growing up in my house, especially with Black households, what's happens in the house kind of stays in the house, or at least you bottle it up because you don't want to be more problems and more issues. So yeah, all those worries, all those things, kind of like them away. I think there's definitely a lot of insecurities in the beginning as well. For some reason, I had this big piece about being fired or doing this job perfectly. A part of me kind of feels like it was definitely getting into it after getting close to the degree and everything. It definitely felt there's this is the only thing I want to do. Like there's no second profession, there's no backup, there's nothing else. So it's either this or what my 26, 25-year-old self often said was, it's either this or I sell drugs. And I'm a horrible drug dealer. So this is my only option. So at least then I felt that was a big weight on me to like, hey, I had to get this right. I have to get this done. So then there's also another competing piece of everybody else's competition. So, there's not enough clients for us to go around. Later, realizing there's plenty of clients.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of people who need help. There's plenty of people who are looking for you. That you just got to be able to, provide access. But, back then, did not know that. But at least that's competing in and of itself. And so with that fostered a lot of different things. So I'm surprised you guys didn't even mention like just imposter syndrome out the works, like top notch, like who am I? What am I doing? I don't know as much as I need to. I'm not helping this person, or at least then they're going to find out that I'm a big phony and it's just a matter of time. And so that weight is just over my head, especially when clients were just not doing well. I think I would get them. And I think the first one, my very first client was not too far from the office where I worked. So it was like right around the corner. And, they brought me in for substance abuse, which, I think I had some naivety about it. Also not aware of the nuances and different things. And just like, hey, I'm just going to be enough. And that kid ran. He didn't show up to school. He did even more drugs after we had real in-depth conversations. I definitely gave him the I was in your shoes speech. And then more drugs, ran away from home, and, ended up going to a facility. And so, felt like the biggest failure. From then on, just more and more got more and more kids, more and more clients, and just still feeling like, okay, I have some luck, but that was just luck. I had a good intervention here, or we had a good time. That was just luck. That wasn't therapy. We just played games. That's nothing. And so, yeah, big on the imposter syndrome, big not feeling like I was helpful or I was really doing things, because it doesn't look like on TV.
Mm-hmm.
People are having out here deep, riveting conversation, earth shattering, like on the floor. I'm crying. No, my sessions were none of that. We played Uno. I, drove him home and I was like, hey, you're not going to do that stuff anymore, right? And he would say yes. And then, we would do it all over again next week. And so it just a little frustrating on that end. I think that pressure also kind of created more within me, which I've had several conversations with my supervisor. Even now, sometimes she kind of pushes my buttons about it. There's many times where I try to like wear multiple hats. And so be like, okay, yeah, I can talk to the kid about just therapy stuff. And then it's like, oh, then we hop on over to academics and like, this is how you should study. And then we moved into, oh, you have an ankle injury? Oh, you got like, what's the symptoms? Like, well, you're a doctor. And so she would definitely consistently warn me like, hey, you can't do this. You're stepping outside your realms. There's problems. But like, no, I felt like I needed to, because if I get fired, then once again, what does that say about me? It says I'm a dead duck in the water. So at least then it's like, no, I need to provide them everything, because if I can give them a little bit more, maybe that will further ensure that they will be more, helped, and they'll do the chores that we've been trying to talk to them about. And I think in a sense, trying to get as close to the guarantee to ease my fears of like, hey, I'm worthwhile, I'm effective, I'm a good therapist because I'm getting results. And so with that, then I think there's the far extreme of, there are plenty of moments where I'm like, ah, shit, today's the day I lost my license because this motherfucker. So it's just like, I know it. I think there's one day where it was just like, I think I had talked to the kid about like, look, you need more time, do what you need to do, take your time on things, and just, go with the feeling. This motherfucker, I guess, listened to me too literally, and he pulled the fire alarm to like get out of his test. And I'm like, and so he tells the superintendent like, oh, why'd you do it? Or the assistant principal, whoa, why'd you do it? Oh, because, I just had to go with my feeling. And my therapist is like, no, that is not that's it. My license is gone. It's done. So either, yes, related instances like that, or whether it was more so of, no, this is very ambiguous. And hey, this is the time. I just know it. They're just, kid is still suicidal. They're complaining to parents. Parents are complaining to supervisor. And it's just like, today's the day. It's gone. But sitting with that and being able to process all those things, yeah, being able to talk with my supervisor about it, being able to have help, being able to get out of my own comfort zone and kind of bring those things and be courageous to talk about them, definitely helped, even though there are some times where in group supervision, I felt like no one else has problems because they're not talking about it. Everybody's getting it right, and I'm just the one that's getting it wrong. And just like eventually, just you kind of have to like, hey, I need help, and admit that and share that. And so to get to that point of just like, hey, you know what, I just gotta accept this and go out and try. I have to go out and ask for help. What kind of helped you guys kind of get there for your own anxieties?
I think the biggest thing is my own therapy. I think in a million different ways, it's helped me with my anxiety. One, because it helps me process my life experience as just a human outside of being a clinician and just things that I went through. And then just from a strictly professional level, I've been going to the same therapist on and off for like 8 years now. She's incredible. And I steal a lot of things from her. I'm not gonna lie. Like a lot of interventions. I'm like, I'm
Hey,
2 that one.
you got
Yeah.
You got
And
it.
I told her too, I was like, I'm gonna swipe that intervention. But she, she's also just somebody whose opinion as a clinician I respect like immensely. And so I'll run things by her. My current supervisor at my job, again, just somebody who's been a great mentor for me. I'll run things by her. And I think a lot of it too is, like you said, just being okay with being in a position to ask for support or ask for another perspective and not feeling like, oh, if you do that, then you're admitting that you don't know anything.
Yeah, like you're a failure.
Yeah.
You're less of a therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
So just being open and realizing that like there's a lot of support out there and it's okay for me to ask for it. So consulting with a peer, like just being like, hey, can we jump into my office real quick? I just had a session. I just wanted to run it by you, like how it went for me and see what thoughts you have. So a lot of it is just taking the leap to ask, getting the ball rolling and saying, hey, do you have like 10 minutes? Like, can we just check in about this session I just had? And the more I do it, the more comfortable I get with it. And the more I realize that it's just an opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an opportunity to broaden my knowledge base and to just think about perspectives I would have never thought about. And all of that at the end of the day helps my clients.
Yeah.
So if it's going to help them, that's what I'm doing it for. So that makes it a lot easier to swallow the pride and just ask for the support.
Yeah. It was just big, because then the island gets a little bit bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, oh wait, no, it's not unknown, it's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're able to kind of say, if people are able to like, hey, no, that's normal, then that feels good. So then I feel like in the beginning years, that's tough because, and I don't know, like Ceci, you might be able to share a little bit more, but I felt like in the beginning years, it was like a frenzy of like, I wasn't the only one that was also kind of feeling like this imposter syndrome. So by sharing that with somebody else, another clinician at that time who's in the same boat, is like, oh no, I'm freaking out too. And so it's like, so then the anxiety like jumps up even more. Do you feel like that you kind of ran into that as well, Ceci?
Absolutely. Not too long ago, I heard this saying. It says, when you show your vulnerabilities, you normalize it for someone else. And definitely being able to share with your peers that are in the same boat as you, like you guys said, sometimes it felt like you were the only one, right?
Yeah.
But in really talking to your peers and everyone else, you kind of realize that you're having similar experiences with those anxieties or similar thoughts, similar things, processes that are happening, which really then makes you feel connected and supported by your peers and others.
Yeah. So then for you, how did you kind of get to the point where like, hey, worries or not, I really gotta confront this? You said early on.
Yeah, I think learning about anxiety was something that really helped me, even just pre having this career anxiety. It didn't grow up knowing a lot of what anxiety was. So when I was having a lot of anxiety and experiencing panic attacks, when I was a lot younger, I didn't know what was happening. And when I talked to my doctor about it, she said, sounds like you got some serious anxiety. Sounds like you kind of had a panic attack. And I had no idea really what that was. And so I took it upon myself to really learn about it. And I feel like when I was able to label the feeling, it made me feel less anxiety because before I didn't have a name to it, right? Like it almost felt like I was going crazy. And when I was able to put a name to it, oh, it's anxiety. Oh, it was a panic attack. It made it less scary because it wasn't unknown anymore. Now I knew what it was. And when I knew what it was, then you can figure out a solution, right? So just learning about it helped me a lot. Also going to therapy. I'm not in therapy right now, but I definitely have put myself in therapy before to learn strategies. And I too steal things from my therapist. So we all do it.
Yep. Gotcha.
That's how you learn.
A bunch of thieves.
Exactly. That's the word for it.
Eclectic. Yep.
Yeah. So definitely reached for some mental health support for myself. And now what I do a lot is I like to reframe anxiety for myself. Anxiety and excitement feels very similar in my body. And so whenever I feel anxiety about something, I reframe it for myself and I say, I'm excited about this. I'm not anxious about it. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
This podcast is a good example. Never done this before, but I was very nervous about it. Started to feel that anxiety come up, and then I had to kind of pause and say, you're excited. It's not anxiety. You're excited about it. And it makes it feel different when you reframe it for yourself.
So just out of my curiosity, how do you define anxiety with clients as you've been working with?
Well, I work with kids, so I have to explain
you gotta
it.
break it down.
I explain it a
Explain
little
to a
bit
5-year-old.
different. Yeah. So I tell them that anxiety is normal. It's a part of being a human being. It's part of our feelings. I tell them that it's kind of like our internal alarm system, right? It's there for a reason. It's to keep us safe. It's our way of our body telling us, hey, maybe something's wrong, look out. It's there to help us keep safe. But sometimes, like any systems, like your computer or just anything, sometimes it could go a little haywire, right? And so sometimes that alarm system triggers for no reason. There's no immediate danger. There's nothing to, alert your body that you're in danger. And that's when we want to kind of fix it, right? We want to like tweak it. We want to like reboot it, whatever, whatever client is in front of me, I switch it up a little bit.
You got some tech engineers out there.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of let them know, hey, it's your internal alarm is triggering, right? And maybe there isn't that danger. So we got to figure it out, right? We got to figure out how do we turn off that alarm when it's not needed. I also like to tell them that I can't take your anxiety away. Like your anxiety is not going to go away 100%, but we're going to get it down to a level where it's going to be okay. You're going to manage it every single day. Because I don't, sometimes their expectation when they come in is that it'll be gone, right?
Be gone. That's
you're gonna wave.
We're done.
Exactly. You're gonna wave a wand, and it's gonna go away. Same with depression, and I like to just kind of educate them a little bit more on the reality, right, of what we're able to do in our sessions, in our treatment, in our office. We can't erase those things, but like I said, we can get them down to a place where they're manageable and you can have your day-to-day without it interfering.
Yeah. I think in my sessions, there's been a lot of like, I have to curb your enthusiasm. I won't be able to, even with my approach, expel your anxiety, but I'll get it down to enough, where it's tolerable. But even then, that may not be, ideal for you. Either way, we're going to have to come to a point, as we've discussed, of acceptance. You're going to have to, no matter what, the deadline will come, the test will arrive, you'll have to make a choice, and, you will have to cross the threshold with the belief that, hey, no matter what comes, I'm confident that I'll be able to handle it. No matter what, is making me excited, I will still have to face it and take it on. It's just more so of being able to kind of dwindle it down enough so you can get there to feel like, okay, I feel good enough to do this. So confidence has been one of the things that I've preached in my sessions about, hey, this is the opposite of anxiety. Confidence, if you can build your confidence, then anxiety drops down a little bit more. That's why I've had clients plan things. That's why I have them go out and get information. That's why I have them use their coping skills to kind of get through it. But either way, eventually, confidence is one of the biggest things. So repetition also helps. So practice, experience, years have also been something that is like, hey, by that time you kind of see things, several times. You got several looks at it. So you're like, okay, look, I've been in the dark, for 5 years. Like the sleep in the dark, it doesn't scare me. It's fine. It's fine. And so as we venture more on, can you guys tell me some worries or anxieties that you feel like, eventually the beginning ones kind of dwindle. Eventually you figure out, hey, the critical incidences, the emergencies, you already, know how to handle those in the back of your hand. The imposter syndrome kind of fades away because eventually you treated enough clients who be like, you know what, I'm pretty confident in this. I am, and I've done good work. I have results. I have produced results to show. So, these things aren't issues. But with the experience after that second round, what anxieties kind of came by, but then, have dwindled over time?
One for me that has come by, still comes up every now and then, but has dwindled a little bit, is the idea of, I think you were talking about this, like results. Like, if my client, I used to think if my client isn't doing better after like the first 2 or 3 sessions, then that means that something I'm doing isn't working. That was one that used to bother me a lot. And going back to your example, like of substance use, one of the places I worked was an inpatient facility for people with like really severe substance use disorders. And, oftentimes they would relapse and come back to us. And so if I had a client who I worked with who relapsed and came back, I'd be like, oh man, that was on me. Like they relapsed because I didn't do a good enough job supporting them. And if I had, then they'd still be sober and they wouldn't have to come back here. And a lot of the clinicians who were there for longer than me just kind of schooled me on the idea that like relapse is unfortunately a part of sobriety and a part of recovery. Like it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it does happen often. Not that we're expecting it to happen, but just to make space for the possibility of it. And I think I've been able to apply that for other things too. So, I could have a client who for several sessions in a row would report to me like their depression's gone way down, their anxiety's gone way down, they're much more happy and energetic, and then they come in one day and they're like, all that's gone. I feel terrible. And a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd have been like, ooh, I must have messed up if you're showing up like this. I must have dropped the ball somewhere. But now when that happens, I look at it like, okay, this is life, and life, some days you're just not going to have it no matter how much you've healed. Like some days life is just not going to be nice to you, and you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel like you have everything under control. It just happens. Kind of like we were all talking about, like anxiety, depression can't be eliminated. They will always be there to some extent because we can't control when life triggers us or when bad things happen to us, and those things are inevitable. So I think for me now, when something like that happens, I look at it like, okay, this is part of life. This is part of being open to life, is like you have to deal with some bad things sometimes. So let's process this together. Let's help you kind of use the skills that you learned before to regulate yourself. And let's help you remind yourself that you're going to be okay. Like no matter what happens, kind of like the confidence you were talking about, like the way that I look at it is like, no matter what happens, chances are you'll find a way to cope with it, and you'll manage more than maybe you think you're capable of.
Yeah.
So just being open to it.
Yeah. And so, I think that's one of the biggest things about when you confront your anxiety, you get like a new sense of the world, new sense of confidence, but at least new insight. And so I'm definitely big on preaching like, I think we are indeed all like philosophers, because we're seeing and handling these different, vulnerable pieces of life, and we get to see a lot more than what people in other professions see. And so here is one piece where you were able to kind of be able to sit with this, at least within your profession, of just, hey, there's a little bit more to life. Just because you mess up, doesn't mean that it's horrible. It's devastation. You're set back 10 steps. There's a little bit more things. So then I feel like with that insight and being able to see these experiences, I do wonder for you, seeing that in therapy, coming to that realization, how have you applied that, or what's it been like applying that insight to your own life outside of therapy, outside of just helping others?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that is I love sports, so I always use sports analogies for everything. And I feel like a lot of times coaches or analysts will say things are never as good as they seem when you win, and they're never as bad as they seem when you lose. And I try to apply that to my life. Like if I stack like 5 great days at work on top of one another, I'll come in on day 6 and be like, I'm invincible, like nothing's gonna bring me down. And then I remind myself, like, I don't know what's around the corner. And just just because I have a quote unquote bad day, that doesn't mean that my progress has been erased. Conversely, if I'm having some bad days, if I'm not as productive as I'd like to be, or I'm just kind of sluggish, I just remind myself that I'm doing my best. I'm not always going to have it like at 100% every day. And whatever I'm going through is temporary. And the odds are high that I'm not going to continue having only bad days. So I try to just like regulate myself and say, whether I'm feeling great or I'm feeling terrible, that things generally even out. And as long as you ride out the bad times and you cope in a healthy way and not a way that's going to hurt you or somebody else, that's all you can ask of yourself. And you can reasonably expect that things will get better. And then when they get better, you appreciate them. And you also know, like, if they dip again, I know what to do.
Yeah, because definitely when things are going well, you can get into like an all or nothing kind of perspective and just like this one bad thing, okay, cancels out everything. Oh, we're just formulating the negative. But definitely for me, it's been like not all bad things are bad things. So just being able to kind of take that and implement it. If we were going to get into a basketball reference, if Draymond never took that swipe at LeBron and we lost the finals, we would have never had a KD.
Yep.
So initially, definitely very hurt, very frustrated that we lost that finals against the Cavaliers, but it allowed us to pull in Durant. So some things, you gotta let them play out a little bit longer. So then you, Ceci, I mean, we've been doing this, what, 7 years? 7 years. Damn. Sorry. Time really flies. Like I had to call AT&T the other day and they said, hey, thank you for being a member for 17 years. It's like, damn. But yes, so we have 5 years plus 7 years experience in this field. For you, I think, what has been at least one of those anxieties that after the initial worries kind of went away, these popped up?
Working with parents.
Really?
Yes.
That surprises me. Because, I mean, you're the one also made sure we as staff knew all the names of all the parents for each kid, which I failed.
That is true.
Yeah, so explain.
Yeah. When you work with kids, you also work with the parents. And parents also have certain expectations of what you're supposed to do. And sometimes it's harder for them to understand the concept of therapy and what happens because they're not in the room. And I think that not being able to like meet their expectations of what they think is supposed to happen sometimes creates that pressure and those anxieties, because sometimes they will ask, well, what are you doing? Right? Like he still comes home and we still see X, Y, and Z happening, or it's happening worse now. What are you doing? And over time, I've learned how to address that with parents. And so, again, it was like a spike of anxiety, and then it kind of eased. And then every once in a while, you get those parents again that they just don't understand. And so the not knowing how to explain to them that sometimes things get worse before they get better, that we don't have magic wands. So, they sometimes want their kids to be returned to them with a little bow, and their kid is going to be perfect from now on.
What's the biggest challenge within that? Is that more so like the results piece, or is it, kind of thinking about it, I mean, for me in that spot, it was more so of like, I'm like 26, 27. I'm talking to a 40-year-old about like, hey, you're not doing what you should do as a parent. Like, you're not holding up your end, or this is how, like, I'm speaking to an elder and I'm supposed to be like, hey, I'm supposed to be modest, supposed to be humble, but I also need to call you on your shit.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like it was those pieces, or you feel like it was something else at the root of that was the most challenging?
I think the challenge is that we're also challenging a lot of cultural beliefs. So I work with a population that's majority Latinos, Hispanos, that mental health is something that is unknown or new, and challenging some of those beliefs is, I think, a really difficult piece of it. Trying to explain what depression is when the parent has never heard the word or doesn't understand it, or culturally it was presented to them different. And so now I'm here trying to change that for them, right? And so there's definitely that pushback of like, I mean, I've heard parents say like depression's not real. They're just lazy, they describe it that way. Or even like kids who have more severe mental health issues, they're just crazy, right? That's the word they like to use a lot. Están locos, they're crazy. And it's like, no, it's a mental health issue. This is something that's real. And that's the cultural piece is a big challenge for sure.
Right. Instead, how did you find the solution to that?
Being patient and being kind, and also very empathetic to parents. Just providing a lot of psychoeducation, providing a lot of examples. In these particular cases, I like to use well-picked personal examples. I'll put it that way, without disclosing too much, but also offering, because I am of the similar cultural background as they are, and I feel like sometimes when I can explain it in a real scenario, a real life experience, they're able to connect with it better versus kind of using like a textbook definition of it. And I feel like sometimes that works with being able to connect with them.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those pieces where, yeah, it's not just the they're just lost in transition. It's just, no, you have to combat bigger things, things that are deep rooted, things that just don't expand just a situation. It relates to just generations and generations that didn't allow the opportunity, or at least the emotional intelligence or emotional acceptance. And so, which, yeah, definitely gotta be patient as much as you would like to, snap your fingers and be like, boom, everybody be on board. Yeah, it's a little bit harder. So then for you guys, at least then, I'm curious if you guys ever ran into situations, or even like deep into your treatment planning and sessions with clients, of just like hitting a wall and like, I have no clue what's happening or what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I probably have that with most clients I work with, whether it's like overarching treatment plan or just like in an individual session. And I think one thing that I've gotten better at, going back to the idea of anxiety, is when that moment hits me, is not trying to act on it or trying to come up with a solution, but just sit with it and be like, okay, like I feel stuck right now. And also wondering whether that's how the client feels in session too, whether they feel stuck in their life, or they feel stuck in the session, or they want a solution and they feel like they're not getting it. So I think that's an opportunity to just bring it up and kind of allow it to happen and make a little space for it, as opposed to trying to eliminate it or trying to solve it. So I guess I feel like for me, I've been able to lower the stakes when something like that happens. And I don't say to myself, oh, this means that I'm a bad therapist or I need to come up with an immediate solution. I'll just kind of say, okay, like I wonder what this stuckness is telling me. I wonder just how I can sit with this, try to make sense of it, and even just bring it up to the client and say, like I wonder if you feel stuck, or you feel like you were expecting me to give you like a solution and I didn't give you one. And I wonder how that feels for you. And then using that as a jumping off point to further processing or reflection. Like, has that been kind of what life has been like for you? Have you been feeling like, I'm desperate, I'm out of answers, I need to figure out something to do? And if that's the case, like, what's that like? And how can we just sit with that? And how can I sit with that with you while acknowledging there may not be a perfect solution to this? So just, I feel like everything is data, everything
Yeah.
is something that can be studied. And it doesn't mean that it's a make or break situation or that I'm failing as a therapist.
Thank you, y'all, for tuning into the part 1 of Therapy Anxiety episode here on Therapy House, the podcast. Conversation was just flowing too well, and we decided to split this up into 2 episodes. So stay tuned, pop back in 2 weeks, and we'll continue on with the conclusion. But until the next time, all right, guys, peace.